And I have the pleasure to be opening today's webinar with a brief note. And as such, I would like to begin by thanking you, first of all, our attendees for being here today and for their interest on the INNCYBER Innovation Hub ecosystem. Second, thank you to our speakers. And as Rita was mentioning, let me tell you that we have some of the most knowledgeable experts in cybersecurity with us today, sharing their thoughts on key topics. Then thirdly, a special thanks to our partners, Altis Labs and EDP, that have been with us from the very beginning, and whose valuable contributions have been helping shaping the future of cybersecurity every day and promoting innovation in cybersecurity. Also, a special thanks to all the universities, to research centers, students, professors that are participating in this second edition of the INNCYBER Innovation Hub. And with that, they are also contributing with ideas for a more secure cyberspace for all of us. And finally, a word of appreciation to the institutional presence here today of the Portuguese National Security Cabinet and the National Cybersecurity Center, and also of the Portuguese Air Force. So it is an honor for us. Moving forward, let me tell you that we have a very exciting session today. We will be welcoming the students and professors to the INNCYBER innovation ecosystem while addressing some of the most relevant topics concerning cybersecurity today, and in specific to what regards the COVID-19 pandemic or post-pandemic context. In fact, this is a very pertinent context for cybersecurity as organizations witness a severe technological disruption and acceleration of their digital transformation, remote working, among other. And this is leading to impactful changes in the way that they organize and do business. And as you almost for sure know, this reality has exposed vulnerabilities that cyber criminals are actively exploiting. And so during the next hour, we will have short interventions from our top speakers addressing key issues such as cloud security, digital trust, remote working, ethics and cybersecurity, digital transformation, and last but not least, relevant insights on the policy development context at EU and national levels, and namely the Cybersecurity Act and on the cybersecurity certification schemes. So let me thank again for being here with us today. And Rita, over to you again, and thank you.
Okay, Ricardo, thank you very much for your introduction. I would like now to present Engenheiro Miguel Biscaia, Technological Coordinator at Altis Labs. Hello. Hello. Okay, Engineer Miguel Biscaia is going to join us a little bit later, so I'm going to introduce our next speaker. Welcome, Engenheiro José Alegria, Head of Cybersecurity and Privacy at Altis. Hello, good afternoon.
Hi,
Welcome.
I'm going to share a PowerPoint with you guys.
Okay.
Um,
Okay, feel free to do it.
so my small talk, it's going to be about the way we handle these funny times where the physical location is no longer an obligation, it's something is a variable. But to be honest with you, since a few years, when I developed the cybersecurity doctrine to Altice, Altice Portugal, which is being used in some other operations across the world, the concept of someone working at the office is no longer a fact. So the purpose of my talk is focusing on the human part, the development of the human part, what we call in a under quotes, human firewall. So we have, since a few years ago, a five-leg doctrine. And I emphasize the concept of doctrine, because if you stick with strict rules, in this changing world, you are going to keep changing the rules. So if you set off the principles that you should follow in terms of a doctrine, you will be able to navigate across these troubled waters. So the doctrine has 5 pillars. One of it is one of the most important is governance, which I'm going to talk with you, because if you don't have a strong governance in your organization, you don't have anything. The second pillars, the 2 other pillars are inhibitors, which means they are developed to prevent, reducing the probability that an incident will materialize, to protect in case the incident materializes, is not going to be able to propagate. And finally, if it materializes, if it propagates, you need a counter response. And if everything goes wrong, at least you can recover your company. You don't believe how many companies forget this green part. And then when they have a ransomware, then they cry because they cannot recover their backups or their Active Directory. Now, from the people point of view, we need to guarantee in these 5 pillars, first, that you need to have shared objectives with the different stakeholders, because otherwise we will not engage the company. If you believe the CISO, the cybersecurity, the chief security officer of your organization is the only person responsible for security, you are quite naive and you should be fired. The second one, in terms of prevention, is what we call cyber hygiene in depth, and I'm talking about cyber hygiene from the people's point of view. How cyber aware are they? How well trained are they to detect phishing? On the protection level, you do need to protect identities and accounts, because that's the first vector of attack. Someone will steal the credentials of a domain admin, and if someone managed to steal the credentials of the domain admin, it's game over. You are going to have a big problem. On the counter response, we are investing strongly on entity user behavior analytics, because with people working everywhere, not at home, everywhere, you really need to have a baseline on their behavior. If someone is looking funny of what to do, so that is what we call inside Altice a bad security smell. And finally, business continuity is absolutely critical. But the buzzword of the day, it's guarantee zero trust in terms of your identities and access management. But it is easy to say that this is the future, but it's very hard for a company with a lot of legacy technology to move in one step toward this direction. Now, in terms of governance, you know, most of the companies, most of them, I will say 99%, view the cyber awareness, lato sensus, in this way, bottom up. The humble users are the ones that carry the current, okay? Typically, all the awareness training is for the humble users. Now we have a different view. It must start from the C-level. They must guarantee the budget. The department heads must understand their obligation. For example, in Altice, obsolete technology is under the direct responsibility of first line directors. not the poor system manager, not the poor team manager that is dealing with IT, is the director that is responsible for not having obsolete technology. Now, the program we implemented for people, and I want to emphasize this, is not just awareness training. It's not just awareness education, it's training. So we have this cycle, 360-degree cycle, which we are using a platform based on CyberIT, an Israeli platform, that we keep testing every employee, both internal or contractor that works for us, something in our case, 50 out of 10 different categories of emails, and we keep training them. If they fail the test, they get a video, immediately getting the learning, because they failed to detect it was phishing. And this is a cycle process, and we start with 24% people failing, and now we are under 12%, which is quite a good value. Now, in parallel, you have a solution, which, by the way, won the Open Awards at Altist for 2020 in terms of technology, which is a fish fighting approach, which I'm going to explain quite in one slide. And this, with a concept of gaming, will train our employees, both internal and external, to get ever more street smart in detecting phishing and spam. All of this goes to our analytics platform. And one thing is very important. We are investing on entity user behavior analytics to understand who are users that are risky. For example, a user with privileged access, if he clicks, if it is a pseudo clicker, which means someone that fails more than once in a phishing test, we need to look at this person very careful. So we have this solution that gives feedback to the testing, the phishing testing, to fine tune it, and then it also gives feedback to the fish fighting approach, so that we fine tune that also. In terms of fish fighting, this is quite common in many companies. You have inbound emails. In our case, many tens of thousands of emails a month. Then you have Anubis networks, as most of you have, to filter basic spam and phishing. Then you have a Checkpoint Sandblast, is a sandbox to analyze the payloads, the documents that come attached, and so that the discard. Then you have Office 365 with all the security controls. But then you have introduced a new add-in in Office 365, so that all employees with Outlook 365, they can hit a button if they find an email that smells wrong, that doesn't look right, that looks spam, looks fishy, okay? And finally, at the outbound, you have Zscaler that protects us against links outbound. So we developed this add-in, which is a funny button with this look and feel in Outlook. And then when you see an email that you look like spam phishing, you have the options. No, this is my junk. I know this is my stuff. Do not try to go back to Anubis to improve the blacklisting lists. No, this is phishing. So you are an expert, because we then have an algorithm based on crowd voting. And then I'm already a guru in this platform. Some colleagues are just experts. So the algorithm will evaluate you against your quality in terms of detecting true phishing. Okay, but if you don't know what it is, one very important functionality, then our RoboFish, which is something we developed, is going to analyze, is going to VirusTotal, is going to all the sources, and is going to give you a full analysis of your email. If it is spam, if it is phishing, if it is spoofing. Do you understand? So this is a way to also use the employees. You are an engineering house, right? I mean, we are 14,000 people. 1/3 at least are engineers, are people with degrees in technology. So we can use these people to detect spam and phishing, particularly spam and phishing that are not yet in the database of Anubis or Checkpoint, particular attacks coming from Portugal. So at the end of the day, we are in very difficult times. And so every chief security officer must think on this phrase from Mark Twain, who knew that Mark Twain was an expert in cybersecurity, okay? That's the problem in red. So that's the reason my recommendation from a CISO to a CISO, you should make sure, particularly in these times, you should invest in these 4 vectors. Zero trust, if you can, particularly if you are a new company. Cyberware training, not just learning. You need to train people, and including fish fighting. You must invest on entity and user behavior analytics, starting with users, because now it is quite, the baselines from users are quite muddy. So you need to have technology and algorithms. In our case, some of them based in machine learning, to try to detect if someone is behaving in a funny way, so it frees a certain, what we call a bad security smell, so then human analysts will follow it up. And then, but not least, most important, your recoverability. You are going to be attacked one day. All of this is going to fail. So it's better that you can recover. So prevention, counter response, last defense. But zero trust is very hard, okay? I know that there are a number of providers now selling this as a silver bullet. Forget it. It's not easy, particularly for a company with a few years. So what I recommend, and that's what we did at Altis, we focus on protecting and recovering the Active Directory. Thank you.
Engineer José Alegria, thank you very much for your great presentation. I believe that we have now with us Engineer Miguel Vizcaya. Hello.
Sorry, good afternoon. Yes.
Welcome. So I would like to ask you to make now your presentation, please.
Okay, I will share my screen. Just a moment, please.
Okay.
Okay, can you see my presentation? Yes?
No.
Not yet.
Meanwhile, I would like to share that Engineer Miguel Vizcaya is going to talk about the challenges of cloud security and solutions while we wait for the slides.
Sorry, I'm having some technical issues.
That's okay.
If you have multiple screens, you have to choose the top one, the number 1.
So I can. Sorry. Share screen. I think now you can see my presentation. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's perfect.
So good afternoon. Sorry, I'm late. I promise I will take a brief and I make a brief presentation, and we'll give you. I intend to give you a plain glass view about Altis Labs and our cloud native strategy that we are intending to implement in our company. Also regarding the security aspects that we think are paramount in our days. So I'll talk first about Altis Labs. So Altis Labs is a company founded in the 50s of the last century, and our history is linked with the evolution of the telecom sector in Portugal. We are an innovation hub supported by a strong and dynamic ecosystem involving the academy, customers, international customers, companies, and so on. And we have commitment to improve people's lives in the way that companies and business communicate more efficiently. In that regard, we have a long history of innovative technologies and landmarks, such as our such as Portugal, with our technology, Portugal was one of the first countries to have a fully automated telephone network. A university was founded in our offices, one of the most relevant universities in Portugal, Aveiro University, and we have several international awards and first-class products in the telecom arena. We develop a full stack of products and services. We have a large portfolio, connectivity, fiber optics, 5G, operation support systems, networking control, service platforms, and applications. And worldwide, hundreds of millions of people use every day our platforms and services across 5 continents. So what do we see as the major drivers for the adoption of cloud-native technologies? So we think that, and I think it's common sense, that the pandemics have accelerated the digitalization of services, and that more and more users communicate anytime and anywhere, and demand more advanced services and platforms, more interactive, more features, and so on. So we need to adapt to a more dynamic and also a more multilateral world where constant innovation, we think, is the bedrock for the survival of the companies. So in that regard, we think that the advent of the cloud computing paradigm is in some way reshaping the telco and IT industries. And we think that the increased adoption, the global adoption of major cloud provider solutions is creating also new opportunities and benefits. Some of them are related with the cost structure, like the opportunity to reduce static costs by adopting infrastructure and platforms as a service. Also, the possibility to increase scalability, geographic coverage, business continuity by leveraging the global infrastructure provided by the hyperscalers and the main cloud service providers. Also, one driver that we think is very relevant nowadays is the possibility to have a higher automation and more secure infrastructure and platforms inherited by the CSP's experience, knowledge, and certifications, and so on. And in the end, what we intend more is to lower the time to market and our product delivery footprint with more state-of-the-art cloud infrastructure. So you don't see only advantages, there are several risks or some risks that are relevant to be mentioned. So we don't think that the adoption of cloud-native technologies and architectures is a linear and riskless path. We can see from practice that there are some risks, for example, related with the strategic options that our customers adopt concerning data locality, platform integration, commercial partnerships with some specific tech companies in cloud, and also regulatory issues in this concern. Regarding the legislative and regulatory constraints, we see that those are really relevant risks that need to be addressed and are very relevant related with data privacy and geographic location of data. And there are some pertinent questions and some conflicts, for instance, between the US Cloud Act and GDPR. So data sovereignty is a major concern, especially with relation with the individual and institutional private data. And we think that the privacy issues should be addressed with caution, also in cloud service integration. So in cloud, sometimes we integrate with other cloud services from other cloud providers in all the other jurisdictions. So the privacy issues are amplified in this sense. Other questions, other risks are related with demanding applications in terms of latency and high throughput. For instance, big data, machine learning, and online charging, trading platforms, and so on. In order to tackle these risks and to have the benefits, we have defined strategy, evolution strategy, that is consubstantiated in a couple of strategic principles. The first one is that we think that we should maintain the vendor neutrality in terms of cloud provider by adoption of open and de facto standards like Kubernetes, for instance. We should also embody our solutions and products with cloud native architectures and technologies, for instance, microservices, containers, virtualization, network virtualization, segregations, and so on. We must also support multiple deployment models to cover our customer strategic options. We need to be flexible in this regard. So we should support on-premises, public cloud, multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, and so on deployments. And but we need to define some strategic partnerships with cloud service providers on a product-by-product basis. This for Altis Labs products as a service. The adoption of a minimal set of cloud CICD tools. Those are the tools that our developers use and coordinate in the development process. We need to adopt also cloud CI/CD tools in order to implement state-of-the-art collaborative deployment patterns. Related with the security, so we must evaluate the data privacy impacts on cloud deployments, and we must define a security methodology involving abuse case, threat modeling, pen tests, and so on. This is one question that we are already doing with our development teams, and we must provide also a well set of recommendations, security recommendations to be implemented in our products, like zero trust architectures, privacy enhancing technologies such as homomorphic encryption, and so on. But this is not just technology. We must develop partnerships with the academy in order to acquire and leverage knowledge and experience on security engineering. And we must have a well-established network of partnerships with CSPs and other cloud tech companies. And it is really important for us to participate in well-known and reputable forums like this one in cyber. Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Engineer Miguel Vizcaya, thank you very much for the presentation. I now would like to present Engineer Paulo Muniz, Chief Information Security Officer at EDP.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hello, good
Everybody.
afternoon.
Hello.
Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you all for being here and to listen me. So I will start to sharing my screen in a minute, as always. Just wait a little bit.
Okay.
The usual time to share it.
Mm-hmm.
So, so again, thank you all for being here. Today I will talk about a different thing, not only focus on cybersecurity, nevertheless, cybersecurity is the main one of the main pillars, but I will talk about digital trust and maybe creating here a new position even for myself, for a digital trust officer. So, I mean, digital trust officer is obviously a role that I have created here just to transmit the idea that digital trust for me, and I think for our organization too, it's something more and broader than security. Nevertheless, security, as I said before, the security and resilience is one of the key pillars of this digital trust. But the trust is the main concept here, is the main question here, because we have trust in our DNA. The trust is embedded in our way of being. We know what is trust in the business, trust in the relationships, and the friends, and the family. So trust in digital world becomes a challenge. So it's difficult to make some people understand, the people that are not involved in things like cybersecurity, advanced knowledge, or even just a small knowledge about cybersecurity, but sometimes it's difficult for people to understand what is digital trust, because we tend to trust in our home banking, or maybe in the travel that we do in a plane or in a train, but we don't understand what is behind in terms of digital trust. So this concept is not obvious, is not in the conventional world that we used to know. So it's important for organizations to create trust in order to world to advance in terms of economic and society. Okay, for me, in the way of view, you can have different frameworks, different ways to set things, to place all these important things. But cybersecurity obviously is one of the key pillars. Privacy, it's obvious another one. Transparency and accessibility of the technology and the way we use technology is another thing that sometimes we don't spend too much time thinking, but it's getting more and more important. And finally, ethics and responsibility. I will just run through all these four in a very quick way. So highlighting that in cybersecurity and resilience, we don't understand, most people don't understand how our lives depends on cybersecurity. We obvious that every day we listen about the data protection issues or incidents and things like that, and cybersecurity is important, but most of the times we are using things like just traveling, as I said before, or even the water that you drink in the pipes that you have in your house. And you don't understand that behind these things is a digital world, and even more dependent on a digital world. And digital world has a digital vulnerabilities and digital threats. And then it's cybersecurity and resilience is fundamental for this pillar of digital trust. We have to understand as an organization. So cybersecurity is obvious, as everybody know, a very broader, a very large subject, but I will just highlight an idea about cybersecurity. First of all, that we must know what is our crown jewels. We have to understand what we have to protect in terms of critical infrastructures, as we are, and have lots of millions of customers. So we understand that personal data and critical infrastructures is our jewels that we have to protect, our crown jewels. That does not mean that we don't protect anything, the rest of the things, but you have to imagine, in the analogy with the conventional world, that you have a policy in the door of the important people. You don't have a policy at my door, for instance, but so you need to protect more the things that are critical, and you need to invest and to put your efforts and your resources to protect what is really important for you, and, as I will say in the next slides, for society. So we have lots of different things that you care about in terms of cybersecurity. I will not run through all these things that I have in this left part of the slide. Legacy systems. So Engineer Alegria already mentioned that for companies that have legacy, and it's difficult to implement things like, for instance, the zero trust. But I will focus on the OT and IT worlds. That OT is the world that companies like ourselves we have, that control the physical parts, physical things, that create action, that acquire real-time signal, and then you decide in real time, and then you make things move, like controlling aeroplanes, like control substations, or the dams, or whatever you want, but it's the real and the physical thing. And then you have the IT that you are most used to, because you have the HR systems, you have the planning systems, email, and so on, and the internet and the browsing. So these two worlds, they were apart years ago, but they are even more connected. That creates vulnerabilities, and sometimes you have impact like the one that we had this Friday in the United States, that everybody is talking about, that creates a panic and creates an emergency situation, because a cyber attack could affect the OT world and the physical things just by using the IT, or even the IT part of the OT that also happens. So this cybersecurity and the resilience between these two worlds is very important to address. Our company obviously has this concern, because we have this typology of work and networks, but obviously this is not only a concern of our company and the concern with our our customers, because that brings the idea that these companies have a role in the cyber defense and the sovereignty of the nations, more than we think that we might think about it. Because you can imagine a conventional world. In a conventional world, a war. So our people that work in our company don't play any special role in this war, because they are not militaries, they are not with the guns, so they have to just to maintain the infrastructures working. But in the cyber world, in the cyberspace, these companies has a role, and they play the defense and the cybersecurity of the not only of the infrastructure they own, but also for the nation and for the sovereignty of the nation. So it's important to understand that in the digital world, new rules comes for these kind of companies, and that obviously is the concern of the world and the European Union in particular, and there is some regulation about this already in place. So regarding transparency, there's important thing, because for many years that we talk about transparency, and we know that it's important to create relationships and inside the company with the customer. So you have to bring this to the digital world. You have some initiatives that you can do it, like for instance the ratings. The ratings, if you disclose ratings from the companies, the ratings, for instance, they don't provide obvious the idea, the global idea of the cyber risk of a company. Obvious that if you have a good rating, that doesn't mean that you are not attacked, and I'm a witness of this because that happens to us, and we have a good rating. But it's important, and it reflects your efforts and your investment in terms of cybersecurity, and that also reflects your position in the market. So I believe that transparency could be achieved by simply disclosing some ratings of the companies, or any other measures or any other KPIs that you might have, but that they come to be, they should be on the market in order for us to decide when we have to buy. We have in considering all the cybersecurity aspects. So transparency could pass to use ratings, but also to create trust centers. I remember that some companies, because they were born in the headquarters are in the countries that we tend to don't trust too much, and they create trust centers only to provide a way for us to inspect the code. That will bring also transparency. Blockchain is also a technology towards this objective, and we also need to explain and to make it clear the artificial intelligence algorithms that we use, and what they decide and how they decide. This is very important to create trust to the society. Privacy and control. I will not spend too much time in this, because everybody knows the GDPR, and that the privacy is a right that we have as a citizen. It's a fundamental aspect in our life. You should have obvious that you should only first of all, I think you should use the privacy aspects to leverage your business, and not to consider this a burden. So you have to use this as a way to create value for your organization and for the customer. So you should only use the data that you need from the customer. You should explain obvious everything that you do with the personal data of your customers and partners. And obvious that the quality of the data is sometimes an aspect that is not too much stressed, but is important, because wrong data could lead to wrong decisions and wrong usage, and could provoke damage in the life of the customers and the consumers. And finally, ethics and responsibility is the fourth pillar that comes with the idea that machines don't distinguish right from wrong, and sometimes humans also don't do it, but we tend to believe that we do it better than machines. So machines don't distinguish right from wrong, and the ethics and responsibility in digital world is also very important. So if you imagine that some algorithms are already deciding things that the people that stay in the prison, or they are left in the jail, or are free, or not free, but at least they can circulate in the streets. And this happens in the United States. So because the jails are too overfull. So, and then you decide with algorithm who should stay and who should be outdoors of the prison. So that algorithm cannot have some bias that could hurt our values and our moral principles. So these kind of things are very, very sensitive, and I think that they are jumping out in our lives, and we have new ways, we have the new problems and new challenges to decide about these things, about in ethics and responsibility in the digital world. So also the digital technologies that need to have also a human way, to a human face, because you can say that a doctor can be wrong more times to diagnostic disease than a machine. A machine have all the data and diagnostic the machine better than a doctor in a few years, or maybe right now. But I don't know if the machine will communicate this better than a doctor. I don't know. It's something that we have to think about. And this kind of the human face, the human interaction is something that we also need to consider in this pillar. And the ethics use, the use of technology is also, you can create addiction, you can create services that are not good for the society and so on. So it's important to consider all these ethics and responsibility. At the end of the day, what you need is to create confidence, and confidence can be on the customer. If you look at the first sentence, this is a customer is trust for your customer, the services that you are using from your company that provides your service. But the second sentence is about the trust as a citizen. So even if I am not a customer of my organization, I need to have sure that my organization has in place all the defenses and all the protections in order to protect the society and then the economic development. So as always, trust is about the repetition of good behaviors. So the behaviors of confidence. Confidence creates and destroys very, very easy, but it takes time to create confidence and digital trust in this concern. So we need to repeat and repeat and repeat these kinds of attitudes, this kind of behaviors, this kind of participation in society, and also to create something that is important for our development. That for me is digital trust, and that is a mission of the new role that I'm trying to achieve. That is the digital trust officer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Engineer Paulo Muniz, for your presentation. I now would like to present Professor Telmo Vieira, Managing Partner at Prémio Valor Consulting.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you all are safe, and thanks for being here with us today. I'm going to share some notes that I believe can be useful for the projects that are being developed by the different universities. So let me share also my screen.
Okay, so Professor Telmo Vieira is going to talk about cybersecurity and digital transformation, the relevance of innovation hubs. I believe that we are seeing the screen.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Or not yet?
Yes.
Okay, so let's start. I have several slides, so some of them I will try to go relatively fast, and then I'm going to make available this presentation in our website. So first of all, as you know, in cyber, digital transformation, cyber and IoT Innovation Hub is an accelerator for fostering innovation on cybersecurity and also cyber defense, involving universities, research centers, institutions, and reference companies and organizations in an integrated ecosystem. So this is the vision of this initiative. So concerning this second call for projects that was addressed to different universities, we have 53 groups registered from 23 faculties, 11 research centers from Europe, United States, and also from Brazil. Now some notes about cybersecurity and digital transformation and the relevance of innovation hubs. So in their approach to digital transformation, organizations, they need to do some relevant aspects. For example, rethink the business model, rethink products, services, and solutions, rethink processes and operations, and also rethink the relationship with users, customers, and patients, if it is, for example, the case of organizations on healthcare. When we look to digital transformation, there are several aspects to consider. For example, mobility, big data, remote working, artificial intelligence and machine learning, cloud, physical, cyber physical systems. And this relates to cybersecurity, cyber resilience, and also digital trust. So there is an accelerated digital transformation process moving forward, and the European Union has a cybersecurity strategy for the digital decades. We have in this webinar some friends from United States, so we are going to share also what is the vision that we have in Europe regarding these topics. So the first one of this cybersecurity strategy from European Union concerns resilient infrastructures and critical services, widespread adoption of cybersecurity technologies by small and medium enterprise under the digital innovation hubs. There is also a European leadership on standards and cyber space, and also some aspects concerning securing 5G networks, regulatory measures for an Internet of Secure Things, cyber skilled European Union workforce, and this is also related with what Engineer Gelgria was mentioning before, boosting cyber defense capabilities, and the European Union network of artificial intelligence enabled SOCs. Concerning the first topic of the agenda of European Union, resilient infrastructure and critical services on health, energy, transports, banking. There is a case that probably some of you know. There was a first known death from a cyber attack in a hospital, in a university hospital in Germany. It was a ransomware attack, and the systems crashed, forcing the hospital to turn away emergency patients. So for all of us as citizens, of course, this is something that we do not want to see in hospitals. The second aspect of the European Union agenda in terms of strategy, widespread adoption of cybersecurity technologies by small and medium enterprise under the digital innovation hubs. Of course, this topic of cybersecurity, it is not just in relation to large organizations, it's also in relation to smaller companies. And innovation hubs, such as INNCYBER Hub, constitute a roadmap to foster applied innovation. The mindset is innovative technological solutions to improve overall cyber capabilities and resilience to address current and future cybersecurity challenges. And this is leveraged by a collaborative ecosystem, open innovation, and also knowledge transfer. The third point concerning European Union leadership on standards in cyberspace. As you know, there is the Cybersecurity Act of 2019 from European Union that introduced a wide security certification framework for ICT products, services, and processes. In Portugal, there is several work that is being done. I would say quite a good work, and we have here some of the representatives of this quite good work that is being done. So there is a project for a decree law updating security on the cyberspace and cybersecurity certification. So cybersecurity certification is a relevant topic, and in Portugal there is work going on this topic. For example, we have the National Framework for Cybersecurity, we have the National Cybersecurity Maturity Assessment Framework, and we have a roadmap for minimum cybersecurity capabilities, also focusing on small and medium enterprise. As I mentioned, we have here with us some friends from United States, and some days ago we were sharing how we are in Europe. So this gives some idea of how we are addressing these topics in Portugal in special. So some economic evaluation of cybersecurity investments. Making some investment in cybersecurity, of course, should be also assessed by entities. So Companies need to prioritize performing a risk assessment of their organization, what we call due diligence, to find out how much they stand to lose in case of a cyber attack. A risk assessment should comprehend the following: identify what could go wrong, events that result from malicious acts, and determine what levels of cybersecurity risks they are exposed to. And a good understanding of the risk level would allow an organization to dedicate adequate actions and resources to treat risks of the highest priority. And something that is also relevant today, which is, for example, when we are looking for a transaction process, and this is something that I work in my professional life, for example, M&A processes, it's quite important now to look for a company cybersecurity due diligence. It's something that before it was not, I would say, comprehended in the scope of our work, but now it's critical to look for this topic. Probably you saw on TV these last days one cyber attack in a major United States fuel pipeline. It took place on May 7th, and it's still moving forward. The situation is still not solved. And one of the major fuel pipelines in the US, called Colonial Pipeline, was hit by a ransomware cyber attack and is leading to a possible fuel shortage in US fuel price increase. So as we can see, and Paul Muniz was mentioning, on critical infrastructures, these topics can be quite significant. Now, analyzing from a board point of view, how we should analyze the investment on cybersecurity. So concerning the economic evaluation of cybersecurity investment, some notes. The economic impact of investment in cybersecurity for companies is focused in how much it is possible to save from preventing a cyber attack if the company opts for the investment. So this is the normal investment analysis. This includes monetary loss, but also the potential loss of intellectual property, loss of reputation, and business disruption. Imagine, for example, in a hospital, when one patient dies in a hospital, of course, what is the loss in terms of reputation, or the same, for example, for companies in critical infrastructures. So companies must compute the annual loss expectancy from security incidents as an approximation of potential costs. And with it, they can then assess whether the price of the solution and the reduction in incidents will worth the investment. So basically, there is this ratio, this indicator, which is return on security investment, that is given by this formula. So this is something that organizations now are considering, and this is key performance indicators for the board of management of organizations. Some figures and challenges that result from COVID-19. So there is a study from Kaspersky, how COVID-19 changed the way people work. And this is on their 2020 global survey. Some brief notes. In 73% of cases, employers didn't conduct any special training on safe interaction with corporate resources over the internet. Many remote workers also used company laptops and smartphones for unintended purposes. For example, 61% admitted to have downloaded software from torrent sites. In September 2020, members of the Lazarge group attacked a pharmaceutical company that was developing a coronavirus vaccine. So the number of attacks, as you know, during the pandemic increased in a very significant way. In Premivalue Consulting, we did also some research from 5th of December 2020 until January 21st, 2021. Some of the results of our study: 88% of respondents reported that they increased significantly their daily life activities through the use of internet. 9% of respondents reported having been targeted by a cyber attack since the lockdown. Honestly, for me, it seems quite a significant number. And 18% of respondents reported not knowing if they have been targeted by a cyber attack since the lockdown. So this is some auto-reported data. And now, as you know, because of the pandemic and because of the economic situations that we are living in different parts of the world, but also in Europe, there is the Recovery and Resilience Plan. There is an execution period up to 2026, and it comprehends the implementation of a set of reforms and investments that will allow to resume sustained economic growth. And let's see some of the lines of this plan. So there are 13,944 million euros of grants, and concerning loans, 2,700 million of euros. So it's a lot of money in terms of this recovery plan. When we look deeper on this, we can see that for the digital empowerment of companies, there is a budget of 100 million euros. For the digital transition of businesses, there is a budget of 450 million euros. For catalyzing the digital transition of companies, there is a budget of 100 million euros. And specifically concerning cybersecurity, strengthening the overall cybersecurity framework, it's 407 million. So there is a lot of investment capacity from the European Union, and this budget is only for Portugal. So for Spain, for other countries that are also enrolling in our innovation hub, there is also several, I would say, amount of euros for projects that address these topics. So those are quite challenging times that we all are living, ourselves as citizens, also organizations, but there is a Chinese proverb that says that when the wind of change blows, some people build walls and while others build windmills. So the vision is to build windmills and try to transform what is a difficult moment in a potential moment in terms of the opportunities. So those are some notes that I wanted to share with the universities, with the students, professors, and researchers that are working on their projects now concerning INNCYBER Innovation Hub, telling that there is quite a lot of investment potential on this sphere, and I wish you good luck in your projects.
Professor Vieira, thank you very much for the presentation. And now I welcome Dr. Marcel Rodriguez from PwC, Director Risk Assurance Services, Cybersecurity and Privacy. Welcome.
Hello, thank you very much for the invitation. Can you hear me well?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay, great. And can you see the screen, right? Just 1 second.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the presentation is in full screen, right? Okay. So the main topic here I was about to discuss, it's the remote work, considering the device security. I won't be discussing the next slide in detail, but that was interesting because I already had the presentation concluded on the previous week, but then I saw this news that was already discussed today. So it's the Colonial Pipeline. I won't be discussing this in detail, but they had indeed a lockdown. A huge pipeline is freeze at the moment, and they are transporting the fuel by roads. What I found interesting in this, it's one of the news. It's not here on the bottom side, on the right. How did the attack occur? This is not concrete news, of course. It's an assumption, but it's interesting because Digital Shadow said the Colonial attack was helped by the coronavirus pandemic, with more engineers doing the remote work. And they even go a bit further, and they said it could have been brought by account login details for remote desktop software such as TeamViewer and Remote Desktop from Microsoft. It's interesting. It was not on this presentation. I was going to start with the remote work device security. So it's important to know that it's something that it still happens. It not only happened during the beginning of the lockdown. Let me just pass here to this, because this was one of the first indicators that I would like to show, is that on January 2020, Reposify is an attack surface management platform. They try to identify every asset exposed to the internet. And they had here a report where they said that in January 2020, they detected around 3.5 million remote desktops exposed to the internet. It's very interesting to see here that in March 2020, that number raised from the 3.5 to 4.7 million. So that's indeed here a huge risk, and which led to this remote desktop exposition. It was indeed the need of the companies to continue to execute their work and opening their network, also to allow the workers to work from home. So starting here the presentation, remote work device security, giving here the context, the sudden and swift shift of tens of million workers from on-site working on remote environment, it's indeed very challenging as never before. So the purpose of this discussion is a bit to close how can we address those security gaps that the remote work indeed has set up, and try to identify the main risks, and also talk about what can we do to do the corrections, how to implement some corrections. It's a 5-minute presentation. I cannot go pretty deep on the subject, so I will only give here the main topics. So main questions that we might ask regarding the remote work model is, and the majority, it's very interesting because the majority of them were already discussed here by the other speakers. So one of them is, are you looking at your third-party risk management controls? Are the vendors also working securely from home? So not only our workers, but also the vendors. It's very important to take a notice on this and see how the vendors are performing. How well are we monitoring the employees' use of devices and applications? If the worker cannot share a file with his colleague, for instance, sometimes he might, okay, let me open a Dropbox, for instance. That certainly is not allowed on the company, but are the collaborators aware that they cannot share the information on certain platforms? That's very important. Is the VPN able to handle the large influx connections? How well can they handle the peak loads? I think that at this moment, this might not be an issue, because that certainly happened during the beginning of the pandemic, so the workload might not be an issue. Another question, have you reviewed what remote users have access to? Do you have multi-factor authentication? That's also very important to address. How are you communicating with your employees regarding the security practices, like encryption of home routers and Wi-Fi passwords, and also the prompt installation of software updates? Something was also mentioned here, that we should have more trust on the way how we connect to the company, or even implement something like the zero trust. But at the moment, it's very important to, since we perhaps don't have these controls, ensure that the place where the employee is connecting should be secured, and he should have been using the good practice, such as installing the software updates, lock his computer even while he's not at home. Imagine that you have something, some co-worker that shares his home with other users, for instance. So that can be indeed dangerous. This is the security awareness training. And have you adjusted the algorithms that are intended to detect threats and monitor identity and access management in the remote work environment? That was also brought here today. That's very important to understand that we have a shift here on the paradigm. So now we are working from home. So we should also adjust all the controls that we have to try to identify possible situations that working from home might brought us. So this is the main topics of the work model. Now, how can we try to address this? And I said here, secure remote and distributed work for the long run. That's important because many companies are choosing now, after the crisis is over, they will have some sort of model where some of the employees will be working from home. So this will be something very common these days. So it's important for us to prepare. And how can we prepare for this? Cloud technology, already brought up today. So on-demand infrastructure using cloud technology, because in the cloud you can scale up as well as scale out and implement some sort of controls. So it's one of the ways that we can follow. The off-premises, so an adoption of a combination of architectures and solutions that dissolves the traditional on-premises boundary in favor of the anywhere, anytime security. What does this mean? Is that we can no longer think, okay, I'm in my company, in my network, and I'm secure. This no longer happens these days. So we should try to think the best solution that will work on premises and off premises. Like we should consider it's the anytime, anywhere security model. The endpoint security is something that is already considered in the majority of the companies, but it's now even more important to have the mobile device management also, ensure that the endpoints are properly secure. The monitoring, also maintain the effective monitoring, detection, and protection controls, very, very important. And also the risk analysis. We should have a robust risk analysis and try to detect all the scenarios for the possible disruptions that might appear. And as last, we have the VSOC, so it's a virtual security operations center that will enable the remote analyst work, and it will also increase the productivity and also the availability. So these are the main topics that might consider. We have lots of topics, extra topics that could be also mentioned here, but I brought this up because I think they are the most relevant, at least to discuss. And just to conclude the presentation a bit, to go a bit deeper here, imagine that we have the endpoint security and you want to do some audit over the endpoint security. We might recommend something like this. We have several guidelines that we can explore. This is one of them, the NIST SP 846. They have several categories, and on the right, I have here the category and description. So something like securing the telework PCs, ensure that privilege escalation is not possible. They also have ensure that malware is properly installed and updated, ensure that web browser is protected with all add-ons and extensions limited, ensure that VPN technology is currently in the best practices, ensuring that disk is encrypted, of course. So if you want to dig a bit further and see, okay, let me check at least how is my my endpoints, if they are properly secure or not, we recommend that you follow a guideline, something like the NIST, and you may have many other guidelines to do a little checkup. And this will go into the endpoint security here that I said on the previous example. So I think that I ended up my minutes. Thank you very much. You have here my contacts if you need anything from my side.
Dr. Marcel Rodriguez, thank you very much for your presentation. I now would like to present Contra-Almirante António Gameiro Marques, who is going to talk about the European Union Cybersecurity Certification and Cybersecurity Strategy. Hello and welcome to the webinar.
Good afternoon. I'm going to share, thank you very much for inviting me to be present here today. I'll share my screen and start my talk. So let's do it now.
Okay, we are seeing the screen.
You are seeing the full screen,
Yes.
right?
Yes,
so,
it's perfect.
Good. So I'm going to talk about these two themes briefly, just to tease a little your curiosity. But I'll start by showing you these, which is cybersecurity incidents in Portugal during 2020. These graphs, these two graphs, are taken out of the latest Cybersecurity Observatory report on risks and conflicts. That's going to be published in the forthcoming week. As you can see, the slope of the line here between 2009 and 2020 is as quite a steep slope, and the lower one, the lower graph, where you can see the curves that compare 2020 and 2019, where you can see a correlation of incidents registered in the Computer Emergency Response Team of Portugal, a correlation with the lockdown periods. Look, the first lockdown here, this is not the second lockdown, but the people here was still in summer holidays. Now they began coming home and working from home, and we have already analyzed the numbers for the beginning of 2021, and they are going up here. And why? Because people was working from home. People is still working from home most of the day or most of the weeks, and in order for them to have to be safely or as safely as they can working from home, they have to have trust, as Paulo has already said. And in order for you to improve trust, you have to play several instruments. And EU has chosen to play several instruments, one of them being the certification process in cybersecurity. And you can read from the Cybersecurity Act this text here. So trust should be further strengthened by offering information in a transparent manner on the level of security of ICT products, ICT services, and ICT processes. So an increase in trust can be facilitated by union-wide certification, providing for common cybersecurity requirements and evaluation criteria across national markets and sectors. And these can be read out of the Cybersecurity Act that was already mentioned previously in one of the addresses that preceded my address. So in order, in the scope of the cybersecurity certification in EU, you have several pipeline processes. One of them, the first one here in the left of the slide, is the EU Common Criteria Scheme. The scheme was in public consultation until the 31st of July 2020. It was finished by then. Now, the following one is the Cloud Security Certification. It's ongoing. The first project was published in the 22nd of December of 2020. The Commission has already invited ENISA, the cybersecurity agency, to develop the first draft of the 5G cybersecurity certification process, and the following on will be the IoT cybersecurity certification, which is paramount for OT cybersecurity in general, that was already mentioned previously in a previous address to this one. So there are several things going on, and as far as cybersecurity certification is concerned in EU. Very recently, actually last month, a very interesting report was also the front cover of this report here in the slide, and the link to the report is underneath, which is something that researchers and also students could very well analyze the document, because the document gives an insight on how will the market react to this certification trend and push of the EU of EU. It's a very interesting document, as most of the ENISA's documents are, and I strongly advise everyone that is a professional or a researcher in cybersecurity to go ahead and study this report. Is quite interesting. So how are we in Portugal as far as cybersecurity certification is concerned? So we have also several paths. One of them was already mentioned. On the 3rd of May, we finished the public consultation on the regulation of the law 46 of 2018. The law 46 of 2018 of the 13th of August was the transposition of the NIS directive, the first NIS directive, and this regulation regulates specifically the legal regime of these cyberspace security in this country, and also defines the first obligations regarding cybersecurity certification pursuant the regulation that speaks about cybersecurity certification of the European Parliament. So in this document, from which we received 17 comments and contributions, quite comprehensive, some of them, by the way, and quite rich. We are going to include them and respond to them, but our goal is to set the scene for the implementation of this regulation in our own country. At the same time, because the regulation of the EU also allows that to happen, we are going to develop, or we are developing, a cybersecurity certification scheme, a national one, to be part of the National Digital Seal. And the National Digital Seal is an initiative that is inside the Digital Transition Action Plan from the Economy and Digital Transition Ministry. So what we want to do is a very simple, a relatively basic digital transition, a very simple and digital and relatively basic cybersecurity certification for small and medium enterprises that will make traction on these processes of digital certification as far as cybersecurity is concerned. This seal will have 4 declinations. One of them is cybersecurity. The other is GDPR compliance. There's another one related with accessibility and usability, and the 4th one related with environmental concerns. So one of them is the cybersecurity certification, and that's the one in which we are working on. As another, I would like also to tell you about this document, this quite important document that the EU has published on the 16th of December 2020. This is an initiative from the European Commission. It has not yet been approved by the European Parliament, but we can already see what are the ideas behind the authors of this document. This document has 3 main areas, as stated in the slide. So develop resilience, technological sovereignty and leadership. The second is building operational capability to prevent, deter and respond. And there's a third one, which is focused on strong cooperation with allies and partners of EU, wherever they may be. I'm going to show you some components of the first 2. So in the component resilience, sovereignty and leadership, I would like to highlight, because of its impact as far as regulation is concerned, on the new network and information system security directive that is already being discussed in EU, and currently, as you are aware, we have the presidency of the European Council, and we have been the Cybersecurity Center has been very involved in the discussions around this new document. I would like to highlight also the ultra secure connectivity, because Europe wants to have a ultra secure network connecting 66 cities of the European Union, whereby they're going to use quantum communication technology and quantum communications infrastructure. And in the document, if you read carefully the document, you will see a project that is the EuroQCI, that stands for Quantum Communications Infrastructure of European Union. Of course, the 5G networks and also a very big investment in resilience, in business resilience, because the construct of EU is based on an open digital market. So if you don't have businesses enabled to use those technologies, including, for instance, the EIDAS, so the ADAS regulation that regulates everything related with biometry and with electronic identification, you may fall behind these goals. On the second area, the operational capability to prevent, deter, and respond, there's also a few initiatives that are quite strong. One related with working together here, the joint cyber unit that is meant to connect entities within every member state to join efforts on preventing, deterring, and responding to to cyber attacks. Of course, a big focus on cybercrime, on the toolbox of cyber diplomacy, and a set of initiatives related with the defense that are going to be funded through PESCO, related with cyber defense policies. The new strategic initiatives are then therefore these ones. So a EU-wide cyber shield that is going to be provided by and through Joint Cyber Unit, and European solutions for strengthening internet security on a global scale with others, with other countries, of course. A regulation to ensure an internet of secure things, where the standards for certification are here embedded and included, and then a regulation for high standards of cyber and information security in EU institutions, bodies, and agencies, which means, of course, the new NIS directive that is being drafted and being negotiated as we speak. So there's a lot of things going on cybersecurity as far as EU are concerned, and we in this country are trying to be proactive and follow those, contribute to the negotiating activities on these structuring documents and doing our own business as best as we can. And I compare this as riding a bicycle, where if you stop pedaling, you fall down. This is the way I see things in the area of cybersecurity. So thank you very much for your attention, and that's all I had to share with you today. Thank you.
Contra-Almirante António Gameiro Marques, thank you for your presentation. I now would like to present Engenheiro Rui Carvalho, member of EC3 Advisory Group on Financial Services at Europol.
Good afternoon.
Good
How
afternoon.
are you? Hope everyone's doing well. I don't have any slides, so basically I'm going to truck through this. My brief presentation is very much based on smart things. And obviously smart things, we're talking about IoT for the most part, although other components are obviously incorporated. Just some perspective of what I'll be introducing and some of the challenges. I had the privilege, obviously, of participating on this evaluation team last year, and we felt that although there were a lot of cyber initiatives, and obviously for a first session, it was a very successful one with some quite interesting projects and quite interesting diversity, not only universities, but also in the way they presented things. I really wanted to focus to you some of the concerns that maybe we faced last year, some of the concerns that obviously my colleagues that you've been listening to kind of presented of some of the initiatives that are going on, but also give you some food for thought, in the sense that one of the areas that obviously, although I'm connected directly with financial crime, the way we see it is cybersecurity as a whole kind of fits into financial crime, because crime usually is for pay or for profit, and therefore it fits to the whole scenario. So basically the idea here of what I'm going to say is basically give you a perspective of some of the projects that might be interesting to face. It's very important, and I'm sorry I wasn't here from the very beginning, and if I'm repeating someone's perspective, I apologize, but it's very important for our perspective, not only to have an academic project, but a project as a whole that can actually become something useful for society in general. So, and that obviously involves cost considerations. It involves not only technological components, but business components to whatever projects you are presenting. Having said that, again, one of my favorite subjects at this point in time. I've gone through quite a few, but at this point, I'm very concerned and very interested in IoT security. Just to give you some perspective of my concerns, obviously, we're all aware we are becoming a smart society. We have smart TVs, we have smartphones, we have smart cameras, we have smart coffee makers, we have smart everything, refrigerators, you name it. Nowadays, the word smart, just because they're connected, is a thing. And obviously, being connected provides a whole bunch of different variety of functionality. From understanding what's missing in the fridge and ordering it from your local supermarket to anything else. But at the same time, that's obviously a big concern, because we are now exposing our homes and our environments. And in our language, the attack surface is expanding in such a way that I don't think if we controlled security to a certain degree in companies, I think we haven't gotten anywhere close to controlling the IoT security overall. Basically, home in the individual is a problem that needs to be addressed. I think part of it is technology that needs to be implemented and placed on the local devices. Obviously, the manufacturers of the devices have a lot to do with this. They need to become even more aware of security. I believe a lot of them are not at this point, and they need to start building security into the devices. And we, as customers and as security responsibles, we need to kind of implement a mindset where security is built into IoT, and that doesn't occur. And it doesn't occur, and I'll give you some examples. Most of these examples are from 2019. The numbers from 2020 haven't come out yet, but they are industry-based, so they're not home consumer, they are industry. And basically the first one, if we start from a very basic cybersecurity perspective, shocks me right away. 98% of all IoT traffic is not encrypted. So 98% of the traffic that is provided by IoT devices is in the clear. So anybody that can get into the network obviously can see this information. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. For those that think IoT is, okay, yeah, it's a thing, but it's not the thing yet. Let me tell you that at the end of 2019, estimations obviously had it somewhere around 5 billion IoT endpoints in industry itself. We're talking 5 billion. I'm sure that the number increased substantially over the last year, although the pandemic and the whole 9 yards might have slowed it down slightly. But the reality is that, I mean, every single time, I don't think you can go to a store nowadays and buy a non-smart TV or a non-smart component. And the industry itself, obviously, even with the pandemic, continues to improve and to increase their visibility on the IoT components for various reasons, obviously. So it's very interesting. We're talking about 5 billion IoT devices. And again, 98% of the traffic is not encrypted. And then to make it just a little worse, I think, or not being totally, not being totally pessimistic, because that's not the perspective. The perspective is obviously to try to get projects to kind of improve situation and to make you think about how we can deal with this. But the idea is that there are 51% of all of the devices are vulnerable at this point. And when it's identified as vulnerable, we're identifying medium to high vulnerability, again, on 57% of the devices in the industry. And that's obviously a concern. And then we have, out of those, 41% of the attacks are obviously targeted to the vulnerabilities identified on the devices. And again, the major concern is that we're building more and more IoT devices, but we're not building them safely. We're not incorporating them into our networks, into our businesses, to our factories, into our lives in a sustainable form. And I think it's a huge challenge for us to face. And I'd be personally very interested in seeing some of your perspectives and some of the projects being very focused on this, what I can think is a significant problem and that will increase over the next few years. So I think it's a relevant area that needs to be addressed. And there's a lot of opportunity for innovation and for new products and new businesses in this area. So that's basically my presentation, or what I wanted to tell you. The various areas that my colleagues have mentioned obviously are all concerns. We all know that ransomware is a huge thing. But again, ransomware can also be applied through IoT, so that's another concern. And the training that's necessary, not only for security professionals or IT professionals, but society in general about IoT devices and the safety of IoT devices, and mechanisms, efficient mechanisms to safeguard IoT devices is very important. So that's the challenge that I wanted to present to you.
Engineer Rui Carvalho, thank you for your presentation. I now would like to welcome Dr. Rui Rego, President at Erlich. Hello and welcome. I'm going to unmute you. Okay.
Thank you. Sorry.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for the invitation. I will try to briefly explain the problems that the problems that small and medium companies are facing now with in this theme of cybersecurity. But most of all, what I think in Erlich we are looking at and we are seeing is not the difficult, but the leaders, they are not aware of the problems and of the risks that they are taking. I will try to show you. Have a small presentation. Here it is. Okay, I think now everyone is looking at the presentation, right?
Yes.
Visible? Okay. So in Erlich, we deal with small and medium companies. We help more than 200, and with last year, we helped more than 250 companies. We helped born 250 companies. And since the pandemic, we always try to talk to the leaders and say, are you aware that you need to protect yourselves and your company in these cybersecurity attacks? And the answers that we were giving is that always the same. I'm a small company. No one will want to hack my business or my company. So this is the first thing that, in my opinion, we need to do is change the mentalities of the leaders of the small and medium companies that always think that this is not a problem with my company, this is a problem of the bigger company or the larger companies. Of course, there are some exceptions, normally with lawyers and accountants that are aware that the information that they have or the data that they have is sensible, and those activities normally try to do some protection, but it's the most of the leaders think that this is not a problem for the small and medium companies. So what we are doing, we are trying to inform everyone that they are looking at it wrong. Attacks are often made to use small companies, sometimes as a springboard to larger companies, or even to sell data. And we are telling them that most of the times they will be hacked, they will be under attack, and will never notice that they have been attacked or their data has been removed for the attacker. So the main problems that when we get to them and we get to the leaders and when they feel that they really have a problem and they need to protect themselves, we have the second part of the problem. Because most of the companies, the startups that they are not technological, I'm talking about companies that are not technological companies. So the second part of the problem is when they realize that the cybersecurity is a problem in this digital transition era. The second problem that they face, that they don't have any money, they don't provide, it's not on their budget any money to invest in cybersecurity. First of all, they say, I don't need that because I'm protected. I hired the service from one of the companies and I don't need to be protected. But they forgot that sometimes the attacks come even from the workers. So this is what happened. They don't have the money to hire specialized services. They don't have the money to buy the necessary equipment. It's not on the idea of the small entrepreneur or in the budgets that we are presented. They never come with this protection in cybersecurity. So the first thing that we need to do is change the mentality, and after that we need to find some way to help these companies in order in order for them to invest in the services and the necessary equipment to protect their businesses. This is the two main problems that we are facing, and I don't have the numbers, but I can assure you that more than 90% of the companies don't have any protections, even in small things that we are trying to teach them, like change the passwords every now and then. Most of the passwords are still a name and 1, 2, 3 cardinal. So even those small steps that can be made to minimize the risk are not taken. Thank you.
Dr. Rodriguez, thank you very much for your presentation and for reminding me to change all my passwords. So let's move forward to our next speaker, which is Brigadier General Armando Barros, Director of Communications and Information Systems for the Portuguese Air Force. Hello, good afternoon and welcome.
Hello, good afternoon. Good afternoon. I hope that everyone is hearing and seeing me. Okay.
Yes.
First of all, I want to thank the organization of this event, special Professor Telmo Vieira, for the opportunity to participate again in a stimulating event like this. It is the second time, and as before, it was a couple of hours very well spent. Well, cybersecurity, and now I am the closing guy, and you are the last obstacle between these presentations and the continuing of afternoon. But well, I would like to make a few remarks. First of all, saying that regarding cybersecurity for us during the COVID-19 context, it was most of all our main concern was achieving this goal of working remotely as needed, when needed, in the required security levels. We are pretty much proud that we have been able to achieve that so far. But today, it was also a day in which we are also being remembered about many interesting things. Many issues were being addressed here, and many guidelines were issued to all of us. I would like to point out, for instance, Engineer José Alegria remember us about these 4 vectors that we all should follow in our organizations: strong governance, being able at least to recover, training effectively people, and not thinking that zero trust is a silver bullet. Also, Engineer Miguel Vizcaya remind us the importance of, since the cloud tools are one of the most sure paths to follow. He reminds us about what is the essential thing that is doing security by design. Then Engineer Paulo Muniz reminds us about the importance of trust, because digital risk is not intuitive, so we need to protect our crown jewels and specifically separate the OT realm from the IT realm. This is, of course, a thing that is being now talk of the town these days. Professor Telmo Vieira hinted us about the European Union cybersecurity strategy that then Admiral Gamero Marx also addressed. Dr. Marcel Rodriguez reminded us about the importance of being able to access our remote work model, and gave us some hints about that. Prepare our cloud technology, being able to have anytime, anywhere security, and also endpoint security. Admiral Gamero Marx then explained us this process of cybersecurity certification, and showed us as the European Union how the importance of that the European Union is giving to this topic of cybersecurity, and how the cybersecurity strategy is how it is written, and what are the main parts. So giving us some trust, again, that great word, that we have institutions that are working very hard on this challenge. Then Engineer Rui Carvalho reminded us about a specific and very important vulnerability that is related with IoT. And so again, we were reminded of the absolutely critical need of doing security by design. It is a panorama that needs to be changed for sure in the next years. Otherwise, we will be exposed to attacks, and regarding attacks, we need always to be conservative and think that all the attacks could be critical. Then Dr. Rui Rego told us about the reality of the small companies, and I think this explains very well that they think that they are not the targets, which it is wrong. But and then they think that the attacks come from outside, which is again wrong, because the attacks coming from inside. So what I would like to comment on regarding this specific idea of Dr. Rui Rego, that for you that are in the other side of the projects, maybe there is here an opportunity to design low-cost solutions that could be adopted by those that have not the means for hiring specialized service or buy special equipment, because cybersecurity should be a concern of all of us. And then why? Because in this digital reality in which we are almost all deeply involved, the consequences that we have a realm in which man can be pitted against man, as in the physical realms. So in the end, we'll have a battle of brains, brain against brain. So brain power will be the key. But brain power is something that is plenty around us, around you, around this expert audience that has been participating in this event. So the results that this brain power could achieve will for sure be leveraged because they could be improved, and there will be this close cooperation between the public sector, in which we are included in the Air Force, the university, and the industrial sector, especially because we have the participation of such prominent leader companies. And for concluding, this is what we expect again from INNCYBER, fruitful collaboration between all the vertices of this virtuous triangle: public sector, universities, and industry. And what we expect to improve our response to this challenge, to all these challenges of this digital realm, but never being overconfident, because as Shakespeare said, security is mortal chief's enemy. Thank you very much.
Brigadier General Armando Barros, thank you very much for your presentation. We now are going to watch a video from the Portuguese Air Force.
Bom dia, sou o Major André Castro, da Ciberdefesa da Força Aérea. A ameaça cibernética é, cada vez mais, uma crescente preocupação no seio das Forças Armadas. E é uma área onde a Força Aérea, em coordenação com o Exército, Marinha e o Centro de Ciberdefesa do INCFA, estão muito atentos. Ameaças emergentes como ransomware, spear phishing e mesmo os IoTs, pequenos equipamentos, um pouco por todo lado, ligados constantemente à internet, levantam desafios crescentes na área da ciberdefesa e segurança. Aguardamos assim, com expectativa, os vossos projetos para a edição deste ano do INNCYBER Innovation Hub. Boa sorte!
Okay, and now for a final note, I would like to present again Professor Telmo Vieira from Prémio Valor Consulting.
Hello again, just a very brief final note. Thank you all for the excellent presentations, very insightful. As General Armando Barros mentioned, this is, I would say, an example of collaboration between the public and private sector, the civilian and the military. And we believe this is an interesting way of fostering innovation and fostering protection in the area of cybersecurity and also cyber defense. For the universities, students, professors and researchers that are attending this webinar, final word to you to say that we are expecting from you nice projects, but please also count that we are available to provide the support. As you could see, there are several reference companies, organizations associated to this initiative. So our goal is to provide you a full support that you may need. So in some months, we hope to see you again in the final award ceremony, where we will invite the best projects to make a pitch, and then the jury, and you could see some of the members of the jury on this presentation, will evaluate your projects, and again, there will be a decision of who will be the winning project. Again, Portugal is working hard on this topic, as you could see, on cybersecurity. So for our friends, for example, from United States that also are on this initiative, also count with us. And if you'd like to have some deeper collaboration with us, we are very happy. Also our friends from Spain that are attending also this initiative, and our friends from Brazil. So thank you all, and keep safe, and see you soon, and good luck for everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Telmo Vieira. Thank you all for watching this webinar, and thank you, special thanks to our speakers. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.